So, welcome to the Real Interview. Today we have an MBE, no less, with us. I'd like to introduce Dominique Unsworth. Welcome to the interview. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time out to speak to us. Have I pronounced your name correctly?
Yes, you did very
Good.
well. Yeah, yeah.
Good. I know it's like what it's like with my name, and people are just so I'm like, yeah, I always like to check. I always like to check.
How do you say
So
yours?
Um, oh God, there's a long story behind that. There are two different ways of saying it depending on which part of India you're from. So it's either Bhaskar in the Hindi way or in the Bengali way, which I am, it's Bhaskar, or in the English way, it's just Bhaskar. So, so as many different ways as you like, I'm used to this.
Brilliant.
Primarily, I think we want to talk today about Little English, but I wanted to use this opportunity to kind of get in a bit more about your background as well and find out a little bit about you. Now, obviously, we met last year at the one of the premieres in Birmingham, Little English. But when I actually started looking into doing a bit of research for the interview, I know you've been a producer for over 20 years. I can't believe this. Did you start when you were in primary school or something like that?
Ah, you're so kind. Yeah, well, actually, I did start in TV when I was in secondary school, but
Right.
um, but I started producing content in around 1999.
Hmm.
So yeah, I set up Resource Productions as a kind of sole trader, freelancer, community group project in
Hmm.
Slough in 1999, and we made our first videos, which were oral history videos, so
Okay.
heritage videos with the local South Asian, Polish, Italian, Caribbean community in Slough, them telling
Hmm.
their stories of migration and settling in Slough.
Hmm.
So yeah, 1999 Active Archive was our first production.
Okay. And how did you get? I mean, you said you'd done some work before that. How did you get into it? Is it something you always wanted to do when you were at school?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky. I got a place at a school which was a public school, so it was a fee-paying school, and they sort of had different bursaries and scholarships, and it was lots and lots of media people went to my school, like their
Right.
parents were in the media, and that was the only way that I found out about the jobs. So there was a girl in my class at primary school, and her dad made Tony the Tiger advert. And I remember him taking us to work, and we saw Tony the Tiger and how it was made and a piece
Yeah.
of film in a cinema. And it just blew my mind. And I must have been about 8.
Yeah.
And from then I was like, wow, you've got this little bit of film, and then you see it on the big screen, and you're just like, it's magic.
Yeah.
So that's how I decided I wanted to go into it. And then in secondary school, I managed to get some. I just wrote to every TV show and every magazine, and I got
Mhm.
work experience at Pingu magazine at BBC,
Yeah.
White City. And so I, got my dad to, take me to White City to do Pingu work experience. And from there, I just got more and more work experience, and then got jobs from the age of sort of 16 doing
Mhm.
different things on TV shows.
So it's never too early to start.
No, no, I think that we work with children and young people, and we started as a youth organisation,
Yeah.
and we encourage primary schools to kind of explain to kids about their own creativity, to get them thinking about the stories that they want to tell.
Yeah. You've kind of touched upon this when you talked about resource. Now, it, am I right in kind of understanding that resource productions was kind of started up almost to support underrepresented talent and filmmakers? Um, Tell us a little bit about the company. What made you want to start up Resource?
So I set up Resource when I was a young person myself at a youth centre in Slough, and I was kind of attending that youth centre for fun, but also to learn some technical skills. They had an edit suite, they had cameras,
Wow.
and I had access to those resources,
Yeah.
which you couldn't get easily in the 90s anyway. And I was at that youth centre in Slough, and unfortunately I ended up unemployed, and essentially, yeah, kind of like sofa surfing. So
Mhm.
I then was lucky enough to have the local museum and the local youth centre say, well, why don't you set up a project, apply for funding, we'll pay you to teach other kids and help you start up this process. And so I was really lucky that I was in a community where the local youth services, where the local heritage organisations supported people like me. And
Mhm.
I was lucky that I had already found out about creative careers, but all around me, I found all these talented people just knew nothing about the jobs and knew no way to get in. So So the sole aim of Resource Productions is really to give other people that are in those kinds of situations opportunities and access to understand the jobs, the creative opportunities, and give them access to equipment and other people that they can work with.
And I think one of the things that you kind of touched upon as well, when you're talking about the first few videos that you made, talking about the, I suppose, immigrant communities who had settled in the UK, you're quite passionate about inclusion and accessibility, particularly like in the screen industries. Why is that so important to you personally?
I think for me, I mean, the key thing that comes across all access barriers is, I think, socioeconomic background. So, you know, we can talk about cultural, about being a woman, about access and disability, but actually the one that cuts across a lot of those other protected characteristics are lack of funds. You know, a lot of people that come to this country, or their parents or their grandparents came to this country from other countries, money is a challenge. Not always, but it is. And those people that you know, are maybe first or second generation unemployed, whatever background they're from, it's really difficult to find the resources to get into a creative career, to buy your own camera, to, you know, take a risk on a freelance self-employed career. So so for me, I've seen how difficult that is firsthand through my own experience. I'm from a mixed heritage background. No one in my family before me kind of went into this industry. And, you know, it's still very, you know, it's still very seen as very high risk or very kind of out there, when actually it's one of the most successful sectors in the country, and it's one of the most, you know, well paid in the country. So to try and raise awareness of that, I think it's really important. Otherwise, you know, people who wouldn't otherwise know about these opportunities just think it's unreachable. And it's not. It's just like any job. If you want to be a, you know, a lawyer or a doctor, it's hard. But if you put in the effort and the work, and you work with different people, there is way in, and you can get paid well.
So kind of talking about the things that you've done, you've made a number of shorts in the past sort of 15, 20 years or so. Is that fair to say? And you've worked with people who have gone on to do big things. And like an example of that is you backed a short film called Lehenga by Natalia Siam, who now has gone on to direct her own feature film, Footprints on Water, which was shot here in Birmingham, which I believe is getting its premiere later this year. How do you decide, as a producer, how do you decide which projects or which directors to back? And have you just got a natural knack for spotting talent?
I always say that I'm taste neutral. So I don't really sort of pick people or projects actually myself. What we do is we have a team process. So anyone can submit projects to Resource Productions, and we have like a program called the Creative Collective, where anyone from an underrepresented background or geographic area, so outside London primarily, can submit a project idea. And that could be art, it could be film, it could be dance, whatever. And they submit that to us, register with us, submit it to us, and then it goes through an internal process with external kind of people from different backgrounds, who then work out whether that person needs to think about getting more skills or training, or whether their project is ready to go and they just need directing to funding. And then if we have funding that comes along that matches a project or a person, then we'll try and match that project to the person, you know, the funding to the project or the person. So it's really more about logistics and practicality, because I think everybody deserves a chance. Who am I to say that's a good project, that's a bad project, you're not ready, you know, this one should be picked? We pretty much go on the practicalities of, if someone's got a project and it's going to be, it costs this amount to make, do we have access to that money at this moment in time? And does that person have the skills they need to see that project through? And Natalia is one of those people that has always grafted and always submitted ideas and always kept in contact with us. So she's increased her chances of being supported by us, because she just keeps involved, keeps engaged, keeps submitting ideas, keeps developing ideas, and helps other people. So she worked on so many other people's projects. She worked on a project that we did called Abdullah and Layla, and she assisted me on that. And so by helping other people, you know, it kind of keeps you engaged and keeps you at the top of the list of people that others want to help when it's their turn.
Sure. So yeah, I actually spoke to Natalia myself about, I interviewed her about Footprints on Water a couple of weeks ago, actually. So yeah, that's it's nice. It must be nice to sort of see when you kind of almost see your proteges kind of spreading their wings and getting success like that. Must be quite rewarding as well.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, I'm more of a person developer than I am a
Yeah.
producer. I probably would put that bit first. Is the thing for me is seeing everyone get out there and make their projects happen. And sometimes it's with us if we're lucky enough to sort of get the funding, but more often than not, they're out there doing their thing, in the industry or independently, like Natalia. On the Little English feature film, we actually, one of my fellow producers, Andrew St. Moore, came to one of our youth workshops when he was 16. And I've seen him develop all the way through to the point now where he's helping me rather than me helping him. So that's great. And our DOP, Lee Allner, he also came on one of the very first workshops that I ran at that youth centre when we first set up. And he was on one of my courses and then went on to teach those courses to other young people, and now is DOPing Pravesh's feature. So so it's great to see those people go through that journey, like Natalia, Lee, Andrew, lots of other amazing sort of talented people that have gone through the organisation, and they come and help us, which is great. They come back and they help. So yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing. So moving on to what I call the little film with a big heart, Little English. Tell us a bit about that. How did that come about? How did that project kind of develop?
So it started off as, like I said, we get submissions of projects all the time, and during lockdown, during COVID, we got more project submissions than ever, and we got lots and lots of people writing scripts, sending us scripts, and we also got loads and loads of people contacting us who hadn't been in touch for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years because they've been working regularly, and then suddenly they weren't working because there was no film and TV work, there was no performances, no music venues were open. So there were lots of people who were suddenly unemployed who we'd worked with previously. And they were all contacting us going, what can we do? And we did lots of digital activities, digital showcases, online stuff. And then as soon as it was legal to film again, which was quite quick, we thought, how can we approach some of the funders that we're working with to help some of these people get some work during the pandemic? And we were lucky enough to be working with the Rothschild Foundation. And they said, do you have any ideas for giving people work during this time? And we said, well, yes, actually, we thought maybe we could make a feature film and hire lots of unemployed people to work on that feature film, and people from underrepresented backgrounds who needed a first step or a first credit. And they said, all right, then we'll give you £100,000 to start it off. And that was literally how it started. We also had some funding from Unlimited, social entrepreneurship program to support bounce back during the pandemic, and we utilised some of that as well. We also went on to kind of then get a crowdfunder together and to get loads and loads of different pots of money together. And the big thing was industry came and rallied round, all of the providers of camera equipment. We had an executive producer who gave us pretty much next to nothing for all the kit for 6 weeks. So all of that added up, and that's how we pulled it all together. And we worked with Job Centre to recruit some unemployed young people onto the programme to do their first job and their first credit. And we had lots of people from our creative collective network who were looking for that first credit as head of department, or hadn't worked on a film before but had done art or other areas of music and post-production. So that's how it all kind of came together. And the script was one of the scripts that we had come through that submission process, and we got it down to about 7 submissions. And in the end, Pravesh's ability to be so flexible within the framework that we had and the budget we had meant that we knew that we could work with his script and scale it to what we had. And it panned out really well. He managed to work on a very small budget.
And you can't tell. You can't tell when you see the film at all. Now, the film itself had got an amazing reception at the London Indian Film Festival last year, and at the Birmingham Indian Film Festival. Obviously, I was at that showing, and it's one of those films that really quickly became an audience favourite. What do you think it is about the film that has connected so much?
I think the film has got so many different characters in it that are relatable, not just within British South Asian sort of experience, but actually just the British experience and or the South Asian diaspora experience. So it kind of travels in terms of, we took it to Seattle for the Tasveer Festival and we won the audience award because all of the American diaspora, South Asian diaspora, got all of the references and jokes that were pertinent to their community. But similarly, we took it to Bolton and we had a predominantly, older white British audience, and they absolutely loved it. It probably got the biggest laughs out of any audience we've had, because the characters are relatable. They're people that you can see someone, you know, whether it's a friend or a family member, in someone in the film, and it just sort of tugs at the heartstrings, but also makes you chuckle. So I think that's the secret to it, is it's just relatable and fun. And in these hard times, people just want to be entertained and want to enjoy watching lovely characters who you can go on a journey with.
But it's not just fun for the sake of it. There's a lot of depth to the film as well, which, because it was advertised as a comedy to me, and when I saw it, I was like, actually, there's a lot more to the film than it just being a bunch of jokes. How was the film casted? So you've got a mix of well-known British Asian talent, people like Amit Jana, Shin from DCS, Sanjeev Goli, and then you've got relative newcomers like Ramit Roli and Viraj Juneja. So how did you decide upon? Were you involved in the casting, or was that largely Pravesh? And how did that come about?
Pravesh is great. I mean, I did pretty much every single casting with him, more as just a second pair of eyes. That again, I say I'm not like a tastemaker. I wouldn't say I'm able, like Pravesh, to spot a good actor or bad actor or whatever it might be. But there's a gut feeling as a producer when you are being, you've been reading a script and you've been working with a director, and if that person is representing the character how you see them when you read the script. So I was there as backup for Pravesh, and also we had the DOP Leona come to many of the casting days, and we kind of decided already, because Pravesh had worked extensively with Goldie and Amit, that those characters were pretty much straightforward. Pravesh pretty much said, you are playing these characters. They kindly said yes, and that was great, because they had a pre-existing working relationship. They had worked together, Pravesh had worked with them, so that kind of gave us a little bit of respite, if you like, to then find the two leads. And that was much harder. I mean, we literally probably video interviewed every single person of the right age that we could, and then reached out to people that had never performed before in a film, and we did very open casting and auditions, and got referrals from agents. And actually, when we finally cast Ramit, she had actually been put forward for the character of Sweetie, I believe, and so she'd been put forward for this sort of secondary character, and we had rejected her for that. And then we were looking back through, kind of going, how are we going to find this person? And then we just brought her back in to audition for this part, and just immediately in the audition, as she was performing, Pravesh, myself, and the DOP all looked at each other and sort of, we knew, like, this is
This
it.
is our Simi.
She's the one. And then we had to find a Harry that would match her, and we went through dragging her back in, and also getting Seema in, who is the Gabach, the mother, back in to see if the chemistry worked between Harry and the mother, and Harry and Simi. And Viraj was just full of energy, but also, he'd been known, I think, mostly for a comedy role that he played, but actually his range and his ability to be vulnerable and be sensitive and to do the romantic part of it was actually really surprising and really lovely. And the performance was kind of, strong, but also very vulnerable. And then also he has the comedy element, which is, he is a funny guy. So that all just came together, and we're really lucky that we found Seema, Ramit, and Viraj, and their chemistry really worked. I think hopefully you can see that on screen.
It definitely did.
Yeah.
So since the premiere last year at London Indian Film Festival, take us through the journey of the film since then. Obviously got released in cinemas last Friday, wasn't it? Yeah. So how easy, hard was it to get the film released in cinemas across the UK?
So it was really difficult to get the film released. It's been a year almost since myself and the other producers finished the film. We were really lucky because we had two amazing film festivals that wanted the film before it was even finished. So Tongues on Fire and London Indian Film Festival both approached us. We would love to have premiered it at both, but we just couldn't finish it in time for Tongues on Fire. So London Indian Film Festival was who we went with, and we were so pleased that both those festivals were interested, because that's who we wanted to pick up the film. But the problem was then, once we did that, is that we had been contacting loads of sales agents and distributors trying to follow the traditional film process. but because it's neither an independent art house British kind of worthy, cutting edge, critically acclaimed drama, nor is it a big budget, celeb driven A-list commercial film. It's sat slap bang between
in the middle,
kind of the kind of no man's land. And so it became very difficult to try and convince sales agents and distributors that a film with two people in the lead roles who people weren't necessarily globally aware of, to pitch that and then it to be commercial genre in terms of romantic comedy was really, really difficult. So so nobody picked it up, everybody passed, everyone rejected us. And so we decided to go out to the American film market, which happened to happen at the same time we'd got into Tasveer Film Festival, the largest South Asian film festival in North America. And we thought, well, let's just go out to America and try and meet the Americans direct. Again, we got interest from China and Saudi Arabia, and we're still following that up, but no interest from America or the UK or Europe, which is really interesting. But both China and sort of different Saudi partners saw the benefits of it being a English-speaking, predominantly South Asian diaspora film that was of interest to them, and they understood the market. But the generally the North Americans and the Europeans just didn't understand the market, and they couldn't see this being a commercial film or that people would want to see it, or enough people would want to see it. So they all passed. So we came back from American film market, and then we basically applied to the British Film Institute's audience fund as a sort of last-ditch attempt to distribute it ourselves. And we were lucky enough to get that funding, which meant we could hire a consultant called Anit, who then took on the film for us, and then hired a booker. And she worked with, two people to deliver the film and to book it for us and to get to the people that we don't know, like at Cineworld and View and the Light Cinema. And they took that forward. And then we spent the rest of the funding from the BFI on prints and advertising. So creating the digital masters, getting adverts out there, creating the flyer, having a press preview, all of that to try and get it out there. So, and we managed to chart on our first night, we charted at number 30 in the UK box office, which
that's
was not a bad go.
That's very good go. That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, we're still in the top 40 as of today. We're holding up in there. So we're at number 40, I think, today. But yeah, we've gone up and down between 30 and 40 over the last week. And today we've been out there for 1 week in the top 30, 40. So that's really a massive achievement.
Yeah, and generally speaking, the film has been received really well after its general release as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, so what's happening now is lots of independent cinemas that had previously turned down the film are now seeing the box office figures and the averages per screen. So we've only been on a total of 26 screens around the country, but those 26 screens have turned over a decent amount of money. So, where it's working well, it's filling out cinemas. We've sold out in a few venues, which is unusual. So now lots of cinemas are interested in what we're doing and picking up the film. So yeah, we're getting more and more bookings. We've got quite a few over up in Leicester, Northampton, and back in Hammersmith in London. And we're getting more bookings every day. I think we just got one in Reading, which is back near where the film was actually shot, which we couldn't get before, but now we picked that up as well.
So it's amazing that it's a sort of a true kind of independent success story.
Yeah, totally. From start to finish, we've kind of tried to integrate into the big system that is film in the UK. But where we've had those rejections, we've just decided to do it our own way. So there's something really satisfying about seeing the box office list and seeing, Disney and Searchlight and Warner Brothers and then Resource Productions.
That's amazing. So final question now. What is next for both Little English and for Resource Productions?
So for Little English, Pravesh and I are still on the road. We're still taking it round. We've got another month or two of screenings, and we'll make sure we get it to everybody that wants to see it, hopefully. And then we're going to go back round all those people that rejected it with our box office figures, with our, coverage from the press, and say, right, does someone want to pick it up digitally? Do other territories want to pick it up? And we'll start trying to do those sales and either get a sales agent or distributor now, or do it ourselves and sell it directly to those different territories. So that's the journey for Little English. And then for Resource Productions, we hope to still work with Pravesh, and he's got lots of ideas he's developing. I've set up another company as well, which we're developing some of Pravesh's ideas through, which is called Parity Pictures, and that's based in the Northwest in Bolton. So I'm sort of spinning off the feature film and series piece with my fellow producers, Andrew St. Maur and Leslie Ann McFarlane, and working with some of the talent, including Pravesh, to develop some of those bigger projects. Meanwhile, Resource Productions, we're for the first time, we've got core funding this year. So the Arts Council England have finally been able to support us. They've given us lots of project funding over the years, and so more focused on our artwork, so audio, visual, music, interactive, non-narrative fiction, creative projects, and artist development. So we've got 3 years of developing lots of underrepresented artists in the Southeast, and trying to collaborate with lots of other creative partners.
That's amazing, amazing. We're looking forward to everything that comes for both Little English and for Resource Productions. So I will let you get on now, because I know you're a very busy lady. So Dominique Unsworth, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks very much. Good to see you, and
great to speak to you.
See you again soon. Bye.
Yeah, definitely. Take care.